uncertain is no pleasant feeling, and when you have goals to hit, it's frustrating aimlessly working and not getting what you want. My name is Coach Donald, and if you find yourself in this place, GHP's online coaching may be a great fit for you. Whether that is prepping for your next races, season, or competitions, handling a nagging injury, or simply looking to become your best healthy self, all remote coaching is set up for you to win. From customizable training delivered seamlessly to your phone, guidance on injury and nutrition, accountability, and even video training sessions, having a coaching relationship with someone who actually cares about you and your family goes a long way. Connect with me to create a proven success plan and see our offerings. Leave your information on my website or send a DM to get started and learn why life-changing fitness is not simply a motto, but a way of living.
During this couple of days was that Patcha Foundation succeed to recharge my battery. I'm a very, very happy guy. You know, sometimes you are doing things and you don't know, you continue as usual. But when I came with Patcha Foundation, with all the talk, with all the advice, I succeed to recharge my battery and have new objectives. So now I'm going to raise all my actions. I'm going to do more, and I pray God that He helped me to continue to do this amazing work. I think with the help of all those who promise, we are going to do more. Thank you for all. Thank you, Patcha. Thank you, Baboni. Thank you, all the people who did their best to make my stay marvelous. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Hello, hello, and welcome to A Freak Today Live. On behalf of the Patcha Foundation, I would love to invite you to our coronavirus live panel brought to you by several millennial professionals. We are so excited to chat with you today and just have a discussion. I know many of us are concerned about how to move forward from this crazy time, but indeed we will move forward. We are heading into recovery mode, and so on behalf of the Patcha Foundation and A Freak Today, I welcome you. Thank you for tuning in with us. And I thank the junior associates. I am the lead junior associate of the Patcha Foundation. So we have put on lots of great information for you, and we cannot wait to share with you. So now I will turn it on to Khadija Adamu, who will be our first moderator.
Hello, everyone, and welcome. As Raina said, my name is Khadija, and I will be one of your moderators for today. So to get started, I want to introduce the lovely panelists that we have with us. So our first panelist is Miss Jasmine Belhin. Now, Jasmine is a licensed mental health counselor from the state of New York. She maintains multiple roles as a psychotherapist, case manager, and a researcher. Her area of focus is anxiety disorders, relational issues, and familial changes. Jasmine is leading a research team that is investigating the strong Black women schema and how it affects Black women in choice of coping strategies. Jasmine is passionate about breaking down the stigma that remains in the Black community about mental health and recognizes how therapy can be an asset for the community, especially in regards to treating trauma. Jasmine, if you want to say hello, feel free.
Hi, everybody. Thank you for joining us. And I'm so excited to be able to share with you today and just help everybody get informed. Thank you for having me, Raina, and everyone else.
Thank you so much, Jasmine. We look forward to hearing from you in a few minutes. Next up, I'm going to introduce Mr. Kendrick Sanker. Now, Mr. Kendrick started his career as a financial advisor with Northwestern Mutuals in downtown DC in 2017. His story starts in Sweetland, Maryland, where he was raised by his mother and grew up with a passion for sports and leadership. He attended Georgetown Preparatory School, where he boarded all 4 years and played football, basketball, and ran track. There was no day off. He accepted an offer to play football at the illustrious Hampton University, okay, real HU, and earned a BA in communications in 2016. Kendrick specializes in working with attorneys, physicians, and consultants as he's conducted over 3,000 meetings with clients across the country. In his free time, he enjoys working out, cooking, and spending time with his friends and family members. Mr. Sanker, please say hello to everyone.
Thank you, everybody, for having me. Excited to be here.
All right. And again, we look forward to speaking with you in a few minutes. Give me a second. Let me queue up my next panelist here. I apologize. All right, next up we have Miss Jessica Ornsby. Did I pronounce that right?
Yes, you pronounced it perfectly.
Thank you so much. So Ms. Jessica Ornsby is the founding and managing attorney of A&O Law Group in Washington, D.C. A&O Law Group's practice areas focus on family law, landlord, tenant, and business litigation. Prior to founding A&O Law Group, Jessica worked as a federal corporate tax associate at a law firm based in Washington, D.C., where she litigated complex tax matters and advised large companies on the tax implications of various transactions. Jessica also litigated family law matters on a pro bono basis, which sparked her interest in practice areas that hit close to home. We love a girl who knows where she's from. During law school, Jessica gained valuable experience as a law clerk at the United States Department of Labor, where she issued opinions related to EEOC claims. At the United States Department of Justice, Jessica served as a legal intern within the Civil Frauds Division, litigating multi-million-dollar whistleblower claims. Okay. At the Eastern District of Virginia, Jessica served as a summer law clerk for the Honorable Anthony J. Trenga, drafting opinions on a variety of cases before the court. Jessica also clerked for Fay Law Group before joining as an associate, where she litigated a variety of matters, including civil rights, labor, and employment, and products liability. In addition to her legal practice, Jessica serves as a tenant advocate for Rockville City's Landlord-Tenant Commission. Ooh, mouthful. Jessica also participates in various pro bono clinics and is an active member of her churches in Gaithersburg, Maryland, and Washington, D.C. Jessica, please tell everyone hello.
Hello, everyone. It is so great to be here, and I look forward to discussing these very important matters with you today.
Thank you so much, Jessica. So our next panelist that we have is Mr. Donald Robinson. Donald has been an athletic coach to many over the years. He is currently the owner of Global Human Performance, a personal training studio in Pittsburgh, PA, and also coaches high school and youth and track and field, which I suggest y'all hit him up because I know you finished all your quarantine snacks. Donald has consulted for coaches in Kenya for the last 4 years on improving their athletic performance, training, and keeping athletes from being injured often via yearly clinics held in Nairobi and online communication. A global man, we stand. Donald, please tell everyone hello.
Hey, everybody. Good to be here. Looking forward to being able to help make sure that we have good resources to do the best that we can during these times.
Thank you so much. And for our last but definitely not least panelist, we have Dr. Alexia Gaffney. She is a triple board certified infectious disease subspecialist, internist, and pediatrician. I'm going to emphasize triple board because what? She is, above and beyond this, a mother, a speaker, an author, and a coach. Dr. Alexia invited the world into her life when she was diagnosed with breast cancer at the age of 37. She publicly shared her journey through social media as she underwent a double mastectomy, chemotherapy, and radiation therapy for her breast cancer treatment. Cancer has transformed her life in her worldview, and she has been healing and transforming herself and others through her speaking, teaching, and writing. Dr. Alexia also utilizes advocacy via conferences, community engagement, and social media to educate at-risk communities and the general public about lifestyle disease prevention and management. She is a firm believer in what she calls treat, eat, drink, and think approach to cancer and healing. Out of her pain, she developed Warrior Wellness and Nutrition, a nutritional supplement line. Out of her pain, she was able to, with this line, create products and services to help those experiencing cancer treatments and a health coaching program for cancer patients and their families. She has utilized her social media platforms on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter, which will be shared later, to share her medical motivation and healthy influence. Here, she not only gives glimpses and insights into her life as a physician and mother, she thrives and helps her family cope with her treatment as well. She utilizes these platforms to give hope and encouragement to breast cancer survivors and their families through and beyond the treatment process. Everyone, please say hello to Dr. Alexia.
Hi, and thank you so much for having me on. Thank you for allowing me to share my voice, my expert opinion, my personal opinions, and I'm so looking forward to the exchange of ideas and the exchange of information across all perspectives. So thank you so much.
Thank you so much. So again, thank you so much to all of the panelists that are joining us today. And I'm going to start out with a question that can go and should go to everyone that is on the air with us right now. Panelists, we can't talk about health without first checking in with ourselves. As Black people, we really got to check in with ourselves and hold ourselves accountable and, extend our own personal experiences to one another. So mentally, physically, and emotionally, how are you all holding up in this pandemic? Ms. Jasmine, I'm going to start with you.
Well, I think I can speak for a lot of different people. I think it's a lot of different emotions that are coming up. So while this is a time to catch up on rest and all of those different things, it's still a very scary time because it's traumatic. People's lives are constantly changing, and there's a lot of unknown that we're dealing with right now. And with news consumption, working from home, social distancing, I think it has been pretty tough. I currently live in New York, and my family is all in Virginia, so I have not been able to see my family. So that's kind of been tough, and all of my friends and support system. But I think I've been trying to use this time to really focus on my self-care and like my well-being, and making sure I'm doing the best that I can to move forward in this time. Thank you.
Fantastic. Mr. Kendrick, I'm going to move on to you. How are you holding up?
Yeah, I would agree with Jasmine. I think, people are finding themselves a lot more during this period where they're doing things that they've always wanted to do, but didn't have the time to do before. So maybe it's a passion of theirs in athletics, or maybe it's a passion of theirs in reading or writing or whatever that passion might be. I think a lot of folks are now finding things within themselves that they didn't do before. Specifically me, learning more, having more time to study in regards to finance, during times in which, when we talk with clients, we say you're on the roller coaster ride of life. And I think this is the time really where the roller coaster has stopped for people to actually put a pause on a day-to-day activity. So I've been enjoying it, taking a lot from it and adapting. So it's been a good time.
I'm glad you're enjoying it. The roller coaster is definitely an excellent adjective that I would use for my own personal, coming to terms with what's going on. Miss Jessica, how are you holding up?
So I also have been enjoying being able to just be at home. I have a pretty extensively set up home workspace that I tried to make comfortable when I set it up, and I didn't expect to use it as much, but I'm really glad that I did. What's been challenging is I'm actually due with my second child on Tuesday, and so it has been a very interesting last few weeks with doctor's appointments and trying to stay, as safe as possible. I do go back and forth between saying I should be very productive because I'm at home, and saying I should just take this time to rest. So I have days where I work like a crazy person, and then I'm like, you don't need to do that. Relax. I have been spending a lot of time with my son, which has been great. Usually he's at school. Now he's here with me all the time. So it's been really a mixed bag. But honestly, for me, spiritually, it's been the hardest because I'm so used to being in church and having that experience. And that's been I miss that.
Yeah, I completely understand. It's definitely been an adjustment, and my heart goes out to you parents that have to transition into online school and having your children run around every waking moment of the day. Good luck. All right. So, Mr. Donald, how are you doing? How are you holding up?
I'm doing well. Different days, bring different feelings. Overall, it's been a necessary break from the long days that are like at the gym or at the track and different things, to where now everything's at home. My interactions with my clients have gone up a lot just in communicating to them. But as far as like having to physically do a lot of stuff, that's calmed down a lot. So I'm sleeping better. I'm not waking up before the morning to like coach. So like that whole thing has been wonderful. And a lot of time to just reflect and look at where do we want to kind of go with the business, with my life, and, being able to make some changes. So that's been really nice. And, kind of looking at what Kendrick even said, having time to study things that are directly related to my craft, but other things that I like to study, but I just have not had a lot of time for. So those are the good days. The bad days, sometimes a little bit of anxiety. Like, I'm not a house person. Like, I'm not a homebody at all. I've been home more this whole COVID time than probably the last like 6 months to a year. So that part's like really rough, but I've been trying to go out and run a lot, which kind of helps me stay sane.
Thank you so much for sharing. No, yeah, I am an extrovert, so I definitely miss outside. I miss my people. Cinco de Mayo is coming up, so it's gonna be interesting. But again, let's keep it moving. Dr. Alexia, how are you doing? How are you holding up?
So I vacillate between being extremely calm and extremely stressed. I feel like I'm always operating from one extreme or the other. I am an extroverted introvert, so the cancellation of things has been peaceful for me to not have to constantly jump up and run, especially on the weekends. However, that cancellation came with stresses as well. So cancellation of paychecks, and cancellation of networking, and time to bond and connect with other people, especially with my family as well as with my support system and my network as it relates to my cancer fam. But also just, calm and peace because I understand what's going on. I have the ability to help in the efforts to take care of people as well as to stop the spread of the COVID infection. And so I'm like operating at one extreme or the other. Unlike most people, I do have to leave the house to physically go to work every day. And even work has been quite different because I am working in 3 different ways at one time. So managing patients in the hospital, managing patients in my office physically, as well as managing patients via telephone and via telehealth platforms. So that has added a new level to my practice. But it's been interesting. Overall, I'm just grateful to be able to serve others and just to live and walk in my purpose. And that is very satisfying for me.
I love to hear it. Love to hear it. And lastly, Miss Raina, how are you holding up? How are you holding up?
Hello, hello. I am holding up well. I actually work for the judiciary, so it is an interesting time. I just graduated law school last May, so I am working in the judiciary and working under a judge at this time. So I hear cases. There's not a lot to be heard. I did go into chambers earlier this week, which was super stressful. The court has been trying to handle emergency matters. Some things are not so much of an emergency. Of course, we are all going through this pandemic together, especially Ms. Ornsby will speak later about the family law matters and the different things that are going on in the community. But families have been really affected during this time, and we'll get to that in a moment. But it's just been an interesting time. I miss working. However, I am happy to be resting and just enjoying kind of focusing on myself for once. Like I said, I'm at the judiciary, so I serve the public most of the time. I'm interacting with not only my colleagues who are counsel, but as well as just overall operation and dealing with multiple personalities in a day. So I do miss interacting with the public, but it's been nice to kind of take care of me for once. So, yeah.
Lovely. That is an excellent transition into my first official question. So, Jasmine, you mentioned that this time period you are really focusing on your own, self-care, which I think is, we've come to find that as mental health has been on the forefront of a lot of conversations in the media recently, especially with this pandemic, self-care is the buzz phrase that's sort of thrown out, self-care, self-care. But as a mental health counselor, what exactly does self-care mean? What does it look like? And how are people, if your self-care used to be going to the nail salon and the nail salon's closed, how are we to adapt?
So self-care, it is a buzzword. And I think a lot of people get a little confused with self-care. So self-care isn't accidentally doing something for yourself. Self-care is intentionally doing something for yourself. So planning to do something for your mind, your body, your spirit, however that you need to fulfill yourself. But it's something that adds to you. A lot of people result to things that may take away from them or things of that nature. And I wouldn't say that is self-care, but self-care can look like, let's say you said going to the nail shop. Love going to the nail shop. So this has been a hard time, but I found that maybe doing my nails myself, maybe doing a pedicure at home has been kind of helpful, or taking time to read a book, turning off all of the screens, praying, if whatever your spiritual or religious background is. But self-care is something intentional. So I think that it varies person to person. It's a very individual thing, but this is the perfect time to get to know yourself, to figure out what self-care looks like for you. Because self-care might be going shopping, but shopping also takes away from your money. So maybe we should find some self-care that we could do at home as well when we want to save or we're budgeting. So I think this is a perfect time to really get to know yourself and figure out what this looks like for you.
Is there anything, sort of a pressing topic that your clients have been coming to you with in this time? Like anything, not an issue that is reoccurring, or do you understand what I'm saying?
Yeah. So I think a lot of people are experiencing anxiety about what is happening. So especially people who do have mental health diagnoses, this is a very strange and uncertain time, because people who have mental illnesses, they need routine. They need a structured routine. So like, let's say if you have bipolar disorder or if you have an anxiety disorder, routine is everything. So this is kind of throwing everybody's brain off whack. And so I think that's the biggest thing about this time, whether you have a mental illness, whether you're just trying to pass through. I think finding a routine has been the most important thing to manage the anxiety. So having some type of structure in your day can make it a little bit more normal, as normal as possible, because we are experiencing something like this.
Thank you. So Mr. Robinson, I'm going to switch to you. So on that topic of anxiety, I know there are a lot of people, the majority of people even, who find working out to be something that can relieve stress for them, especially in this time period when, the days are looking dark and it's looking long. You don't know when the end is coming. So how are you managing that stress within your clients? I can't go to the gym. How am I going to keep active? What should I be doing?
So what I found was that the answer to that question really differs a lot more than I thought it would with some of them. So in making the transition, when the state of Pennsylvania told us we had to shut down and I had to immediately shift to online, we gave them a few different options. We have an app on our phones where they have workouts on there. Then we also decided to do some like video conferencing workout sessions. And then on the other hand, made some pre-recorded workouts to actually provide them. And they all went different paths with that. Some people, a lot of that anxiety came in the actual interaction. They wanted to interact with me. They wanted to interact with the other people. And so a lot of them have, just flocked to doing the video conferencing stuff and nothing else. And other people are like, I just need a routine of something to do. And so some of my clients have like small home gyms. Some are like, they have a couple pieces of equipment. Some of them have like, wow, that's pretty nice. And they kind of take the app and they go to town with that. Some people, I have one member, he went back home to Singapore, and so he had to do a 2-week quarantine in there. And so we had to work on putting together a schedule, because while he still had to work from home on a 12-hour difference on a time schedule, we still had to get his, fitness piece together. So working with them on either getting them active with the video conferencing on, or for some people, it's just checking in on them and like having somebody who's constantly talking to them and making sure that they're okay, or like helping them build a schedule. Jasmine mentioned, being able to have that routine, and a lot of them just threw their routines out the door. And so like I have to like be that coach for some of them to help put that together.
Now, Donald, I know since we're all inside, this is sort of like a New Year's resolution time period. People are taking it as that, I'm going to emerge a new person when outside opens up. So how would you advise people that are trying to get their fitness game right, get their health in order, But again, the resources are limited. Like if I wanted to start, could you give some advice to the starters?
I always take the approach of do the minimum that you can and keep building from there. So one thing that's very accessible to us, because it's springtime, is go outside and walk. I go out and walk multiple times a day. I advise them, go out, especially if you're not having to work full time anymore, go out, get 30 minutes of walking and get an hour of walking in, get a morning walk, get an evening or afternoon walk, which gets you going and actually being in motion. It motivates you to do something else. So then you can say, all right, you know what? I'm going to do 25 squats today, 25 sit-ups, 25 push-ups. And you can just set that low barrier to just do that day after day after day. And then as your confidence builds, you can keep adding to that. But going for a 20-minute walk and doing, 25 squats and a few other exercises might only take half an hour of your day, but it's going to provide you a lot of benefit. And as this situation progresses on, you're able to do more, you're more confident, then you can transfer that to going into the gym and actually feeling like you can start by, being a little bit in shape. Because some people don't like to go to the gym and they're not at all in shape. Now you have some momentum there, and that momentum means a lot.
Thank you so much. Dr. Alexia, I'm coming to you with our next couple of questions. So we're talking about health and how people are staying together and having peace of mind in this time period. So what are you seeing with the many people you reached, especially in the cancer field? How are people reacting and how are they coping?
So people literally have to be coached and guided into coping because the initial response has been panic, fear, and anxiety. Specifically in the cancer community, a lot of surgeries have been canceled for people trying to prevent cancers. Their preventative surgeries have been rescheduled and disrupted, and people who actively have cancer, disruptions in their treatment. I know for my hospital, we turned our cancer center into a mini hospital and redistributed our chemo nurses to hospital floors. So we either had to send patients outside of our system, so loss of familiarity with the providers you already know and trust, or send them, over an hour or more away from where they usually receive care in order to get it. So we've been providing a lot more than just medicine in terms of offering diagnoses and supportive care and treatment, but also offering a lot of just hand-holding and guidance to help people cope, because there's just been so much overwhelm and stress and anxiety about this whole situation.
Now, be it that you are a doctor and you are one of the essential workers, you have to leave your house every day to get to work. How are you managing your own? Did you experience any anxiety when this all came crashing down?
Absolutely. So we do everything that we can to protect ourselves. So in my office, every single patient now has to be called up in advance of their visit. And we have to go through this huge list of screening questions to sort out, is it likely that this patient could bring COVID into our office? And even having done the screening, the reality is we have to assume everyone has it. So does the patient have a mask to wear into the office? How can we get one on them as quickly as possible? How do we keep patients 6 feet apart from one another? And so there's this added level of protection that we need to make sure we're not bringing people in who can spread the infection to us. But I'm the only person leaving my household, so I need to be safe to make sure that I don't bring it home from work or bring it home from the grocery store or the pharmacy. So I'm gearing up and wearing masks and personal protective equipment in my office when I'm in direct contact with patients, as well as when I just simply leave my home like everybody else is. And so simple things like, stripping your clothes off in the garage so that you're not bringing home the germs from the office or the healthcare setting home. And then just trying to find also the balance. So I've had to shift my entire work schedule because I have an 8-year-old daughter who is learning remotely, and I need to give her some guidance and get her set up and going for that as well. And it's challenging as a mother to pull myself away from my parental responsibility to then go into the office and put my doctor hat on and helping my staff cope. My staff has anxiety about coming to work every single day and what they're taking home to their families. So it's like running on a hamster wheel. Like the wheels are constantly spinning and trying to think of all the possibilities and trying to put out fires. It's a very loaded situation.
No, yeah. And my heart really goes out to the essential workers and the small business owners during this time, because you guys are in hyperdrive and hyper mode. How, for my healthcare professionals, but really everyone on the panel, how has it been for you to transition your work? How has it been for you to transition what you do and learn how to still provide effective services to your clients in all of your many fields, but now it has to be behind a screen or it has to be through the internet? How has that transition been for you all? Have you experienced some stress and anxiety over that, and how have you managed that? Go ahead, Jessica.
So my job, in order for me to get the end result, it's direct client work. I'm in court, I'm in a mediation, I'm in a settlement meeting, and the inability to go to court with a client, that leaves a lot of anxiety for a lot of my clients. Their cases are on hold and they know that I'm working, but they don't see it. So if they get an invoice that says, oh, I was researching or I was drafting something, it's more difficult for them to understand what they're paying for. So what I have done is I'm spending a lot more time communicating through our client portal, putting updates for everything. If I talk to someone, you're going to know I spoke to them today, so that they're not wondering, what's happening. I don't even know when the courts are going to reopen. We have tentative dates, but even with the courts reopening, it's going to be in stages. Another difficulty is I have a lot of clients who are not comfortable not seeing me. If I say, oh, we can have a teleconference, they want to be in my office. They want to, have that tangible interaction. I have a lot of clients who are supposed to be receiving mental health support, and they're unable to see their therapists, they're unable to see their caseworkers. And as a result, I'm getting the sort of the windfall of that, where they're asking me to fix things that I can't because I'm not a mental health professional. I have cases that require the involvement of mental health care, and those individuals, those appointed advocates and therapists, they can't meet in person. And it's causing sort of a little bit of confusion and insecurity within the cases where we don't really know what to do as attorneys. And so I'm trying to do as much tangible work, like here's a memo on this, here's a motion on this, so they can see that something's happening, but it's really not the same. It isn't.
And how, what do you tell your clients when they come to you and they say, no, Jess, I need to see you in the office right now?
So right before this panel, I got a flurry of emails from one client who's supposed to receive services. They have not been receiving their services, and they're saying, I need to see you on Monday. I go in the hospital on Monday. You cannot see me on Monday. And they're like, well, I need to talk to someone. Can I see you today? No, you cannot see me. And I have to be firm, but also empathetic and understand that we all are going through this. And from my perspective as, as an expectant mother attorney, I have to also be sensitive to this individual who is stuck at home, who isn't seeing their therapist, who isn't seeing their caseworker, and they just want to see someone who's helping them. So I said, I can do a Zoom call. You can call me later, but I cannot meet with you. And I have also been trying to find more therapists who can help my clients remotely. So I've been building that network significantly, actually, during COVID, which has been helpful for a lot of my clients.
So for people that still have to like Jessica, still have to interact with people face to face, like Dr. Alexia as well. How are you all managing having to set that boundary that was no longer there? Are you finding trouble with it? Is there any advice or even a phrase that you can give the rest of us to say, you know, yeah, I want to serve you, but 6 feet, like, I need you to get out my face, please. Like, how are you all managing that boundary with your clients?
So you absolutely have to continuously remind people because people just forget. I would say set up just multiple levels of reminders. So we're going out of our way to call people and say, don't forget, don't just walk in the office, stay in your car, call us from the car, and we'll let you know if the waiting room is clear or if there's an available exam room. We've also put a sign on the door because people aren't in the habit of calling people from the car when they go anywhere to see if it's safe to come in. So we put a sign on the door. And even with that being said, people still just barge right in. So, you know, thankfully we have a glass door between outside and our waiting room space. And, you know, we could literally say, hold up, like put that mask on, pull it up over your nose. But we also remind people we are here to serve you. We want to give you the help that you need. We want to give you the answers you need. We want to give you the services you need in the way that is most comfortable for you. However, we must protect ourselves. We must protect our other patients, clients, customers, and we just have to honor one another as human beings. I think what happens is people get so caught up in their own personal needs, they forget to consider everyone else outside of themselves. And so we just give them a gentle reminder that we want to protect you, but we also want to protect our own health and well-being, and we want to protect the health and well-being of the other people that we take care of and serve as well. So just constant reminders.
Jasmine, how about you?
I can definitely attest to that. Setting boundaries during this time, it's difficult because setting boundaries is difficult anyway, but it's so important because we absolutely cannot serve our clients and serve the community if we aren't well ourselves. So I think it's necessary to set those boundaries. And, you know, just like you have a work time during the day, you kind of have to enforce that a little bit in a more gentle tone that, okay, so today I'm working from here, or let's set up an appointment so we can talk. But you also absolutely have to take care of yourself. So you do have to set those boundaries. And as Dr. Alexis said, people do forget. And especially since things are so scary, people are forgetting even more, and they're more concerned with themselves and their family. And I don't think it's from a selfish aspect, but just more of making sure they're okay as well. So I think it's just necessary to communicate and let them know and be a little vulnerable. Like, I am a person just like you. I get sick just like you. And I think when you're in a professional role, a lot of people forget that you are also a human, and you also have your anxiety and your things that are going on, and you're dealing with things and dealing with family. So I think you kind of have to be a little transparent and let them know, like, hey, I feel anxious too. This has been scary for me too. This has been uncertain for me too. But we're going to figure it out. We're going to work it out together. We're going to set up an appointment. We're going to make sure we talk about this next session or this session. Like, and so I think being in a professional role, you also have to be just a little bit of flexible during this time, because people need that safety net. They need to know that, like, okay, like, we can talk about this next time, and we'll make sure to bring it up. So I think boundaries it's hard to set during this time, but it's so necessary.
Thank you. Kendrick, I'm really interested to see how this transition has been for you as well. How are you still providing that same service to your clients? And I'm sure there's nothing like sitting next to your financial advisor and watching them point at each of the numbers and be like, this, isn't it? So how are you still providing the same level of service in this different time?
Yeah, that's a great question. Believe it or not, so a lot of financial advisors have most of their clients are actually out of state than in state. That's a common thing that a lot of folks don't know. They think it is uncommon to have another advisor that's out of state. Now, you bring up a good point. You know, having an advisor in state where you're able to build a relationship, you can physically see that person, you know, you can explain things visually better up front, definitely adds a lot of value. And to be completely like 100% working from home, it has its challenges. You know, you're not able to have that connection with folks like you used to, but just like any other challenges, you learn to adapt, whether that's through a Zoom or being more connected through a phone call, and really, you know, asking that person questions versus, I would say, versus going straight through a financial planning meeting. You actually have to take a step back and ask that person how they're doing, how their family's doing, because you have to have that understanding. So it has been a little bit of a change, but overall, it hasn't changed as much as people might think in the financial planning world. It's just, I would say it's more a heightened activity. It's a lot more happening just due to everything that's going around.
Thank you. I had no idea. Like I said, I really just thought me and my financial advisor are going to be best friends, and they're going to tell me to, you know, stop spending all my money on lip gloss and stop going to Chick-fil-A. So I'm actually very surprised to find that it's usually just out of town connections. That is very interesting. How have you been able to, I guess, let me try and formulate my words. So now that everything is fully, you're online, you're working from home, you know, at first you hear work from home back when you had to go into work, and it's like, yes, I get a good day to work from home. But now that this is all that you have to do you find that you also, as the service provider, miss that interaction with your clients, that, you know, now that you're home, people are sending you a lot more work than you would have done in the office? These are common things that I'm hearing. How are you, Coach?
You hit the nail on the head. I mean, before, I feel like life was a bit different because you had certain breaks in between meetings. You know, you get lunch. You know, you had that structure, and now it is more of a back to back activity thing. Where, you know, at first I was a firm believer that I was the best that I could be in an environment at an office, and now I think a lot of folks understand that the challenges that they think they would have working from home, you're now able to overcome those. In those challenges, you've adapted, you've changed your ways, that mentality is gone. So even when I'm talking to coworkers, it's like, I never knew I could do X, Y, and Z at home, and now I'm making that switch, and it's progress. So for me, it's more about being as structured and setting. I think everybody brought up this point. It's just small steps, doing something at the minimum, setting up habits, setting up structure to be able to be the best you can be, but also the limitations. So I'm finding myself having 7 p.m., 8 p.m. meetings, and it's like before I had a deadline, but now it's like you also want to be as helpful to folks as you can, but also find your own limitations where it's okay, hey, you know, 2 hours later it's going to be tomorrow, so you got to condense your time as well. So it's a balance.
And I think the real important part of finding that balance, one of the important parts of finding that balance, is creating a schedule. Donald, you said that you speak to your clients, one in Singapore, many of them, again, away from you, from what used to be a physical, in-person experience. Any advice on how to create schedules for ourselves? I don't know about anybody else, but me personally, now that there is nothing, quote unquote, nothing physically to do, I could lay in bed all day, and I struggle actually creating a schedule for myself. I'll be like, I'll wake up around maybe 10-ish, 12. I'll, you know, knock out a few assignments by 2, 4, and then I end up at 7 p.m., like you said, Kendrick, doing work. So, Donald, any advice on blocking out the days and still being productive?
So one thing I talk to my members a lot about are creating these anchor points. And that's going to kind of differentiate a lot depending on if you're working like adamantly from home or if you're like literally not working anymore. And so these anchor points are small bits in your day that are going to happen pretty much every day. So I give the example that I have to do Zoom conferencing sessions at 9, 1, and 6. And so those things are not going to change every day. So that allows me to now morph a early morning day, a late morning day, an afternoon, and an evening block. And then, you know, depending on now if you're working, figuring out how much liberty do you have over what you're going to actually work on, and putting time blocks either by by the hours or by the days. So like there's Mondays and Tuesdays are my heavy work days. Wednesdays like the day that I do personal tasks because I suck at doing those. I'm like, you schedule a day to do personal tasks, and that's Wednesday, and it still has the same hourly flow, but now the days are focused on something different, and that depends on your flow. If you are a little bit more entrepreneurial, you're very you decide your own path at work, then finding a flow that says these hours are for this, these days are for that can work out really well. If you literally are just like not working and you have a whole lot more time on your hands, even when going into some of those reflections when it comes to whether you're going to spend some time praying, meditating, or working on a new task or working on a new skill, or just having a set time in the day where like every day at 2 p.m., I'm going to call my mom or I'm going to call my best friend. Even having little things like that, my 9 a.m. walk, having those things can help anchor your day so that you have a little bit of foundation to your flow, and then you can build things around that and have some sort of consistent sleep schedule, consistent flow schedule, and time that you know you're not going to have planned to do anything versus having that be the whole day.
Thank you. Yeah, that sleep schedule, that's a big one, the sleep schedule. So definitely action points. I will take that into consideration. I hope everybody watching this is also taking notes. Such excellent advice. Thank you all panelists so much for this first session. So I'm going to field a couple questions from our viewers, and then afterwards we're going to take a commercial break and be right back. So one of the questions we have from our viewers, and again, these are all, anyone can answer any of these questions, but just by the nature of this question, Dr. Alexi, I think it's coming to you. The question reads, a study showed that referrals have dropped by over 70%. What does that do to cancer diagnoses and the risk of late diagnosis, and the downside to that, knowing that with cancer, regular screening and early diagnoses are how the majority of cancers are detected?
So what has happened for me, even though I am a subspecialist, I do a fair amount of primary care. And I was saying to someone the other day, it's like, I'm the primary care doctor, I'm the ID subspecialist, and now I'm the cancer care doctor. Like, I found myself being responsible for ordering studies I've never ordered before, following protocols I've not typically had to follow because our cancer center is closed. So even though referrals are down, care is still happening, because if you have a primary care provider, and that's why it's so important to have one and have a good therapeutic relationship with someone, there are things that they can order to help get your care underway. Can I perform surgery? Absolutely not. Can I do a biopsy? Absolutely not. But I can gather enough imaging labs and information that would compel someone, whoever it is, an interventional radiologist, a surgeon, a surgical oncologist, or the medical oncologist, to know that, okay, this one cannot wait until it's back to business as usual. So it's important to have a good therapeutic relationship, because just because referrals are down does not mean that care is not happening and that cancer care is not happening. Just a specific example, I tried to refer a patient to a surgical oncologist for a pancreatic mass. I ended up ordering the imaging. Ended up contacting the gastroenterologist. The gastroenterologist got the patient, looked at the study while we were on the phone, got the patient in the very next day for a procedure. And then we were able to shift her care elsewhere, and her chemo and treatment is underway. So it's not that care is not happening. It's just that we have to really make some shifts. So that's where patient advocacy becomes so important, because you might find yourself having to push somebody out of their comfort zone to do things that they're not used to doing, just because the circumstances call for it.
Thank you. Does anyone else want to weigh in, or we can move on? All right. Our second question from the audience is for everyone as well. On a spiritual level, what has been positive or negative for you all at this time?
I have participated in more Bible studies And I have found that Bible studies sometimes allow you to interact more with the word in a collective worship space than perhaps if you're coming to worship at a larger church as a congregant. And that has been a positive experience for me because I've been able to study the word more and sort of being held more responsible by the other people who are participating in these Zoom Bible studies. My son is always here, so he's also always listening. And so like this morning we had a pretty long worship session together. So it's been really nice, even though I can't physically see and, touch and hug, everyone. I've been spending more time in the Word in a way that I didn't think that I would.
I completely agree. A lot of religious services have been moved online. Obviously, my church has also been moved online. And so I really, talk about timing, okay? Imagine if this pandemic happened with no technology. Everyone has to read books. Anyways, how is everyone else doing? I know a lot of words that I've been seeing on social media are people are finding new meditation tactics. People are taking up yoga. Have any of you all incorporated any sort of new things into your life?
That's exactly what I was going to share, is that not being able to go to church and having Sunday be that day of worship, I find myself incorporating that into more of a daily practice. So doing a lot of journaling. I've always expressed gratitude, but I haven't always done it in a written form. And just seeking scriptures to carry me through the day. Definitely yoga and meditation, which is very much a spiritual practice. And just getting more in tune with hearing and listening to the voice of God, as opposed to always going in prayer and in supplication and making my requests. I'm also taking that quiet time to hear and listen and see what messages God is sending to me, as opposed to waiting for Sunday to hear it through the pastor, like we're so accustomed to doing. So definitely there's been a shift there.
Anyone else? All right. Well, thank you all so much for tuning in. Please do not click off. We are going to go to a short 2 to 3 minute commercial break. Again, you are watching Afrique Today TV with the Patcha Foundation. We will see you all shortly.
This is Vivian. She recently started a catering business, but like many other small businesses, she was struggling to get new clients. Growing a new business is never easy. She advertised her business on iWing Marketplace to increase her visibility and to attract more customers. Advertise your business like Vivian to attract potential customers no matter where you are in the world. It takes just seconds for customers to find you through the search engine or the category section. So don't wait. Advertise your business today on www.iwingmarketplace.com and increase your chances of being found by potential customers.
Being uncertain is no pleasant feeling. When you have goals to hit, it's frustrating aimlessly working and not getting what you want. My name is Coach Donald, and if you find yourself in this place, GHP's online coaching may be a great fit for you. Whether that is prepping for your next races, season, or competitions, handling a nagging injury, or simply looking to become your best healthy self, all remote coaching is set up for you to win. From customizable training delivered seamlessly to your phone, guidance on injury and nutrition, accountability, and even video training sessions, having a coaching relationship with someone who actually cares about you and your family goes a long way. Connect with me to create a proven success plan and see our offerings. Leave your information on my website or send a DM to get started and learn why life-changing fitness is not simply a motto, but a way of living.
Hello, thank you for tuning back in to Afrique Today and joining the Patcha Foundation for our live virtual wellness discussion. So in this second segment, we are going to be discussing legal matters, money, and just how to support your family during this time. So starting off, counsel, I'll be turning to you, Ms. Ornsby. So as you all know, courts are closed right now. We are still handling emergency matters, but counsel, what are some things that can be heard, or like what can I do if I have a so-called emergency? What is deemed an emergency, right?
Sure. So I handle mostly family law, landlord-tenant business matters. Generally, in a business matter, you probably will not have an emergency. Your matter may feel urgent, and it may be urgent, but it's not an emergency. Within the family law context, an emergency is usually a situation where there is risk of immediate harm to the individual that's at issue. So the most common example is a child who you believe or know to be at risk of neglect, physical abuse. The cases that probably would not be heard right now are situations where you don't like how the child's being treated at the house, the other parent's home. But if you know that this child is being beaten, not being fed, they're being left home alone for hours and hours, and they're under an appropriate age, those may give rise to an emergency. The problem is that the court is pretty strictly screening these. So you really want to make sure that if you have a petition, that you very clearly state why it's an emergency, why it has to be heard right now, and why you need immediate remedy. If you sort of vaguely put, the child is unsafe, you might not get a hearing. And also, you want to try and give notice to the other parent to make sure that you have better opportunity of being heard as well, if you can.
Thank you. And so what about in relationships? You are with your spouse, you are with, potentially a boyfriend or a girlfriend. What can I do in a situation, for instance? What can somebody do if they are experiencing some type of assault or abuse, whether it be verbal, physical, sexually? What can they do? What is that available while the court's closed?
Yes. The commissioner's offices are open. You can go and file for a protective order 24/7, any day of the week. And it's very important to remember that you still have that recourse. The police haven't shut down. They can still serve, these protective orders. And it's important that you take that step to protect yourself. I cannot imagine what it must feel like to think that you are stuck in a home with an abuser and you don't have anything that you can do about it. It is not an ideal situation because you won't get a final hearing for a while, but the temporary will stay in place until the courts reopen. And while the temporary is in place, if the other person violates the order in any way, call the police immediately. A violation of a temporary order is arrestable. So if you are in an unsafe situation, please go to the court and file for a protective order.
And so, thank you for that, Counsel. Jasmine, I just turned into what Counsel Ornsby was just saying. Have you had to support any clients that may have been experiencing domestic violence during this time? Like, for instance, they've been your client for a while and you're kind of aware of these issues that may be affecting their mental health. What sort of things have you been telling them are available to them during this time? Or we've been talking about some of the buzzwords you and Dr. Gaffney used were coping, right? Trying to make it through this time.
Thank goodness I have not had a client that has had any abuse or intimate partner violence happening, but I have had clients that have reached out who are just not feeling good, like mentally and emotionally. So if I am not available to speak with them, I definitely recommend them to contact like a hotline. So here in New York, we have NYC Well, and that's a mental health line where you can text, chat, or call. So that's something that I have been recommending to clients and anyone who just may need that extra support and they may not have someone available to provide it. So NYC Well is 188 NYC Well, or they can text Well to 65173. And that's a place for them to talk to a professional, a crisis professional about what they're going through. And then if the situation deems necessary, I'm pretty sure the police would still be sent to their residence if it's necessary enough. So as far as coping, I know coping is hard because a lot of our coping mechanisms tend to be outside the home. But during this time, I find that I've been recommending things like a hot bath or a hot shower, aromatherapy if possible, lighting candles, listening to music, reading a book or reading a Bible or any type of religious literature. And that's like emotion focused coping, but problem focused coping, things that we have control, I recommend reaching out to your tribe, reaching out to the people who are good for your mental health and who care about you and want to see you doing well. So reaching out to that person and just letting them know like, hey girl, I'm not feeling well today. And I also recommend seeking a professional during this time. I know it's kind of hard to probably find a new therapist in general, so finding one during this time is hard, but it's never too late to begin the search. It's never too late to try to find a professional that you can reach out to. A lot of colleagues are doing teletherapy right now. Some are taking on new clients, so I recommend people looking on psychologytoday.com. That's a place where they can find a mental health professional with specializations. Also, they can put their insurance in to see if that person is eligible for insurance or a sliding scale.
Wonderful, wonderful. Thank you for sharing all that information. That was actually something I was going to turn as to what types of services are covered. We've talked about the legal stuff as to what you kind of can do if you do find yourself in these troubling predicaments. Dr. Gaffney, do you have any perspective? I know billing is very different in each sector, and then I know I actually have been working on an article for publication and just realizing that HHS has kind of relieved you professionals a little bit in terms of what you can and can't do, the devices you can use to carry out these telehealth services. But the problem is, especially for you guys who are the providers, is it billable?
Yeah. So I just saw something today. It was an article on like a widely publicized like Black social platform, and it was saying, oh, now your doctors are going to charge you for things they ordinarily would have done for you for free. And so this idea that we're exploiting the situation for gain, whereas we have an expertise and a service to provide. And it's just reciprocity, you know. So yes, navigating all of these different platforms, is it going to be paid or reimbursed? And something I'm very conscious of is, am I going to make a bill for my patient that they may not be able to pay, you know, because the bills are going to be produced where it's required and where I submit a bill for payment for services. But I'm also very cognizant of, am I disincentivizing my patient to show up for care in whatever way they show up for care? If they feel like, oh my God, this is going to generate another bill, money is already tight and I'm not working, I'm not going to call and ask this question, or I'm not going to get onto the telehealth platform because of what the cost out of pocket might be. But what might the cost be to your health and well-being is something I'm on the other side considering. So I think just like everything else and everybody else, we're just learning how to pivot. I personally have been seeking to utilize the telehealth platform for years. And so I'm sort of happy that my healthcare system's hand has been forced in allowing me to do so, to provide services that way. Because if somebody was just there last week, I don't need to examine them to review their blood work, but it is more than just a simple phone call. So we just want to provide the service, and we want to be ethical about it. Is the language I'm looking for.
Ethics are important, girl. Ethics are important. So we've talked a little bit about engaging with clients and billables. We definitely have that in the legal space. But I'm interested to see Kendrick and Donald, you know, how is that billing aspect going for you guys? Are people, starting with you, Donald, for instance, I know Kendrick says he's virtual with his clients. Kendrick has gotten my finances in check for sure, virtually. But Donald, how about you? Are people expecting cost changes because they're not in person? You can't show them their form, even though you could send them a video. I know some people are different about that. Do you have any insight on that to share with us?
So being in that situation, it definitely required a pretty adaptive response, and some of it was based on the community that I have with the members. And so what I did at first was, going into April, I made sure that I went above and beyond in trying to provide support, given that I wasn't there. Between having them, most of them, their memberships are based on coming into the gym 2 or 3 times a week. But then it became, all right, we're going to do these video conferencing. They're a little shorter. They're not the same. So you're going to just be able to come to as many as you possibly want to, that are being offered. And then really being more robust about the app that we use that their training's on. Luckily, we already had that installed. So then it became your workouts are being uploaded on here, and then just really doubling into the follow-up. So, people are hearing from me throughout the week through their phone way more than they ever did before, between calls, texts, videos sent to them, and really trying to justify the billing because, I'm not Planet Fitness. I'm not going a whole month, nobody paying me. That's just not going to be healthy. And so really going into making it simple. So I left all their billing the same and, made a couple offerings to people who pay a little bit more. And then going into May, actually, I did knock the price down a bit, but I tried to make something really simple and uniform. So some people got a big discount. Some people didn't really get much, but tried to make everything simple because it was, based on how the in-gym stuff was, things were all over the place. And I just wanted to resolve it and make something really simple. And, looking at even in the reopening process, how do I keep it simple, but, scale back out?
Certainly. Thank you. Yeah, and Planet Fitness is closed. That is my membership, and I'm a little bit salty about it, but, thank God for YouTube and stuff. So Kendrick, interested to hear, I know you deal with a lot of big shot clients, physicians, lawyers. Physicians are still clearly going to work, but maybe not a main priority with their finances. I'm sure they're working overtime, so the money is the direct deposit, is still flowing. But what about lawyers that you work with that, maybe their big clients have slowed down, or maybe they're working with small business owners, and so they might not be trying to talk about their finances. So how has that been in terms of, Donna was talking about trying to keep clients engaged, making sure they're receptive and things of that nature. How's that experience been?
Yeah, I think one of the biggest things that our team has done, and I think this separates us from a lot of other firms, is we have an active call list of calling all of our clients back and checking in on them to see how they're doing. I think that separates a lot of advisors from others. In regards to billing, to be completely honest, I think it always comes back to the budget because everybody is in a different space in today's time. So having that call with clients within our group and checking in on them, seeing what's changed, what new expenses have arisen, but also what's really happening. And I think somebody brought this up before. You want to share with the person that even though there's high emotions right now, you don't want to make too many drastic changes, especially in regards to your finances. Because a lot of folks do, with their emotions, think about the short-term impact and not the long-term impact. So, before making any, specific changes, I would always seek advice from a professional in regards to any subject matter, whether that's, a therapist or, your estate plan with an estate planning attorney or, what have you. So.
Certainly. Thank you for that. So just one last question that's a little bit family oriented, and I think this is going to turn to counsel, Ms. Ornsby. So what about custody matters? How's that dealing? How are you dealing with that? Do you still have to, I know many people are like, do I still have to pay child support? Do I still have to do this? If you have any personalized examples as to, some scenarios that maybe our viewers can connect with, and things of that nature.
Sure. The most common issue that I'm facing is exchanges. A lot of parents are concerned about COVID exposure with the child going back and forth. And when you have two parents who don't get along and who don't communicate anyways, they don't trust each other. And so what I'm sort of finding myself is I'm stuck between two parents who don't want the child to go to either person's home. The Maryland courts specifically addressed custody issues and said, hey, if you have a custody order, it remains in place. However, that does not mean that, at least the advice I'm giving my clients, if you have a reason to believe that your child is going to be exposed because of how the other parent lives or their lifestyle, I'm not going to necessarily discourage you from doing what you think is best. So one example is the other parent is a ER doctor who has tested positive for COVID. They still wanted the child to come back and forth. I didn't think that that was a reasonable ask under the circumstances. But I have lots of other cases where both parents are quarantining as best as they can. I would not be able to really argue before a judge in the event of a contempt hearing why one parent's home was more safe than the other. So I try to talk to my clients to encourage them to discuss with the other parent what their quarantining schedule or lifestyle is, so they can feel more comfortable. I've also gotten a lot of questions about child support. A lot of people are facing financial hardship on both sides, and a lot of people who are paying child support have asked, well, COVID, why should I have to pay child support? Well, because your child still has to eat and they still have to live, so you have to pay child support. But that does not mean that if you have lost your job or your income has significantly reduced or changed, that you would not be able to file to modify child support retroactively. But right now, until the court rules on your request, you have to pay child support. And if you don't pay, you just end up building up arrears or, other financial penalties that may not be worth it. But there's nothing about this pandemic that just automatically absolves you from paying child support.
Thank you for that. It's good to know that our obligations are still in place. And so, speaking of obligations, and I think that Kendrick and Council again can kind of speak to this a little bit. Of course, we have obligations. We have leases, both from a residential perspective as well as the commercial perspective. So, Kendrick, how are you advising, especially young professionals, to kind of restructure their budget in terms of paying rent and trying to just kind of keep up with things?
Yeah, so there have been minimal instances where clients have talked about, what can they do. I think the biggest thing is really, again, going back to those emotions. So how do you minimize expenses? I think a lot of folks nowadays are finding new ways to ramp up expenses. For instance, Amazon has been getting a lot of clients that we're talking to. They're not going out and eating dinner anymore, but now they're doing more shopping online. So it's really having that framework of calling them and telling them, hey, when we spoke, this was the budget, understanding that things have changed. How has that changed? What are some new things that you're doing? What are some expenses that aren't there anymore? And how can we make sure we're still, warehousing cash to be sure that, hey, there's a lot of unknown and a lot of folks are getting furloughed and laid off. So we want to make sure that we have enough savings in place for the worst case scenario. So it is very, very stringent on building up savings as one of the most important things that people can do.
Yeah. So actually another question, like speaking to savings, right now we're kind of in a pandemic, right? So if you're already behind on, say, for instance, rent and things of that nature, Mr. Staker, how do I kind of balance out, like, if I was saving, say, 200 to 500 a month now, but I have these, new things, is there areas where I can look in my budget that maybe aren't fixed expenses to kind of help me out? Or what do you think would help to kind of restructure some things so that, like you said, you can still accomplish your goals and not feel like you're bogged down in a sense?
Absolutely. I think when we're looking at the budget, there's a couple of categories that have changed that aren't being filled now. Like dining out isn't as high as it used to be. It might be, personal care where, you used to get a manicure, pedicure. That is no longer on the budget. It might be certain hobbies that you used to do, whether it's going to a sports game. So, when you actually do take a look at some of the things that you used to spend maybe a good amount of money on, you can see where there's areas of opportunity. But I think the big thing about that is taking a step back to really visualize, where was I spending money before, and how can I take some of that and actually make a plan on, supplementing what I need to do moving forward, whether that's, paying rent or building savings in that scenario. So I think taking that first step back is where a lot of folks are at right now, and actually coming back to that budget to see, okay, hey, what's changed again, and how can I make some adjustments?
Certainly. Thank you. So I know that a lot of people have been trying to invest during this time, especially our fellow young professionals. Does anyone have any insight? Kendrick, you can lead us, and then anyone else who may be small business owners and things of that nature. What are some, especially because if you're bored and you're going to go buy something on Amazon, why not invest it, right? At least that's how I'm thinking. Like, how can I for me, I'm looking into property. I had this discussion with Jessica the other day. I'm looking at remodeling my home so that when I move out of the home, I can run this cash back. So it's like, what are some strategies of investing into things? Or what are some places that young people can look into because they may be not as knowledgeable about it, or they may only have, say, $50 to $100, right?
Yeah, I think with that, you definitely have to take a step back. Always think about, the risk as well as the reward. So, before moving forward and, looking at a certain company that you want to invest in, or before looking forward and thinking about, housing item can I purchase to make, the value of my property even higher? I would say think about the risks. And I think when I say that, think about the unknown. So a lot of folks believe that their job is really secure and always be hesitant with that. I can understand as secure as you think your job is, there's always the unknown of what might happen, especially as we've seen. So I would first start with, do I have 3 to 6 months in savings? That's the first place that we generally start off in any kind of financial planning discussion. Do I have that 3 to 6 months? If not, how do I make sure I get there in the time that I have right now? For our clients that have more than 3 to 6 months, it might be, again, like you said, some opportunities, whether that's increasing your 401k contributions at work. A lot of folks don't realize that that's a great investment opportunity, especially long term, because you are effectively, buying more shares when they're lower right now. So that is a great opportunity that folks can do with the time that they have today. And there's definitely others out there. But I think keeping it simple is the best thing that you can do.
Certainly. So Donald, do you have any insight? I know you're a small business owner. So curious to know if you have any insight as to how you've been managing your finances during this time. Do you have any insight for our young people?
So for me at this stage, a big investment for me outside of just making sure I have cash put away and I'm, slowly putting into the IRA fund is really spending time working on what can I be better at to be able to generate more income. And so I've been spending a lot of time working on, learning how to do video editing, being able to, do better marketing, but also learning how to, because I have extra time to spend to actually improving that skill, even looking at certain rebranding pieces and finding how can I, pivot just myself and to being able to have a bigger reach and be able to actually generate some more funds just because, during the downtime, things are uncertain. And so I need to make sure that I'm in a good position to go ahead and make the most of just who I am. And at this age, having that time on the hand really allows me to kind of build on that skill. And so for me right now, it's, cutting out a lot of the, expenses I don't need. I'm in the process of trading in some tech programs for other ones that are a little bit more robust, but actually cost less, and being able to actually restructure how I'm running my business so that I can actually build it to be more profitable.
Great. Sounds like you're doing some awesome things. Thank you for that. And Jasmine, I know you have a huge social media following. I know that you post a lot of content that is probably applicable to your clients, but also people in your network. So has there been any new things that you've been picking up to kind of generate income, maybe outside of your practice that may be kind of intertwined as well?
Yeah, social media is such a great way to, I guess, kind of increase your income and different things like that. So I've been thinking about different opportunities and better ways I can better serve myself. There's also possible relocation. So I'm looking into all of the different ways that I can use social media in different avenues for my benefit right now. So yeah, I'm still looking. So I might need to see Kendrick after we get off this call to get a little financial advice.
Nice. That's good that you're thinking outside the box. So I know a lot of young professionals and just people in general have a lot of questions about landlord-tenant issues and just your rental lease obligations. So Jessica, if you could kind of lead us in this segue, what are, some of the things that you can do to approach that conversation with your landlord in terms of renegotiating the agreement, or if you are potentially going to be behind? I know some people are like, I just got this stimulus check, but I'm not using it on rent, or I know my landlord owns the property and they probably have some release from their mortgage, so I'm just not going to pay. So how do you approach these, conversations? How do you go about that?
I think the best first step is to start the conversation, start the discussion. A lot of people are afraid to go to creditors, go to their landlord and say, hey, this is my situation has changed. What can we do? The good thing is that the pandemic is affecting everyone, so it won't be a surprise to your landlord to hear, hey, maybe I lost my job, or I'm not working as many hours, or something like that. A lot of landlords are taking advantage of sort of mortgage forgiveness programs that different companies are offering. And for a lot of those programs, a requirement is that if you are a landlord, you cannot charge rent during that time. So if your landlord is in that type of a program, and you have this conversation with them, they may very well say, you know what, it's fine. You have a couple of months, you'll be good. Even if they don't have that sort of reciprocity, there are, I know that there are some credit unions that are just offering mortgage forgiveness for a while. So it might not even have the requirement that they not collect rent, but if they've taken advantage of it and you reach out to them and say you're having difficulty, they may be empathetic. Now try your best to stay on top. It's hard, but we all do have obligations, and you don't want to dig yourself into a hole. Right now, your landlord cannot get an eviction against you. They have to wait until the courts reopen to start that process. But that doesn't mean that these months will be automatically forgiven by every judge just because. What will probably happen is late fees will be waived, but the rent itself will still be ordered as a debt owed by you to your landlord. And what's challenging, what I always find is challenging is, now everything's normal. It's July or August, I don't know, wishful thinking, but now you're trying to catch up and stay on top. And that's just a position you don't want to be in. So for residential leases, I would suggest calling your landlord, talking to them, being sensitive to the fact that they also have financial obligations, because another issue that I've seen is a tenant doesn't pay, but then they are upset because the landlord isn't doing repairs. And I say, well, honey, you didn't pay rent, and now of course the landlord is obligated to do what they're supposed to do, but it's that sort of like realization that we're all dependent on each other in our economic system. So to answer your question in short, talk to the landlord and see if there's anything that you can do in terms of cutting down the payment or something. And then if you can't, talk to Kendrick and he will help you figure out, where you can squeeze out some pennies. And if you do have a stimulus check, it might be a good idea to pay part of it to your rent, at least a portion of it. It's not a bonus. This is not an opportunity to go crazy on Amazon or buy something you've always wanted. It's to help you stay on top. So.
Thank you for that. Dr. Gaffney, this question is for you. So just thinking of the business operational side of things, owning your own practice, or even just, hospitals even are a business, right? So have you noticed any of your colleagues or you yourself having any issues being able to meet their obligations in those contracts, kind of talking to what Council was speaking to before?
Yeah, absolutely. So, believe it or not, a lot of physicians have taken major hits. So, I was in a physician group where several physicians had shared that they had just been fired, without notice, and fired without, being given any particular reason. And the reason really is lack of finances coming into practices. Providers have been furloughed. Providers are taking pay cuts left and right. And, some people are really scaling their business in this time, especially people who might have freestanding ERs or urgent care centers. We've definitely had to decrease hours for our staff. And it's twofold. One of it is a financial issue. So patients are actually afraid to come into the office, even when they need to physically be there. Some cases are just not appropriate for a phone call or a telehealth platform. So business is definitely down. And I know a lot of providers in private practices who are applying for the same small business loans that everybody else is, and still seeking the same financial relief that everybody else is. Healthcare providers, I always say people see us with dollar signs in their eyes because they know that there are certain needs that we have and we cannot function on our own. We pay everybody else before we take home a dime. And so I've had to cut my staff by half, and trying to be fair. So having my medical assistants alternate shifts as opposed to just giving them all to one or the other. But yeah, so we're taking hits, we're having to adjust, we're having to pivot, and it's, and we don't know business, like we don't learn business in medical school. So for those of us who are utilizing social media, or those of us who are more business minded and business savvy, people are pivoting. I have a lot of folks saying, well, why don't you do telehealth? And I'm like, I'm already exhausted. I'm already bringing home notes. I already am on call. I don't want to come home and see more patients. So, I'm doing other things in order to bring an income that doesn't require me to see more patients. So it's just all about making that shift.
Certainly. Thank you for that, Doc. So I know that some people, we've been talking about contractual obligations, leases. And so, counsel, how would you address if someone's kind of borderline harassing you? I know some people have been, they've gotten their stimulus check, maybe they haven't paid their rent yet, and the landlord is knocking on their door, or kind of basically harassing them. What's the line on that? How do you draw those lines?
Yeah, so for residential leases, your landlord does not have the right to infringe upon your space. It is your home, even though it belongs to them, and there are certain limitations to their access to your home. So I've heard a lot about landlords coming by and sort of doing like knocks, like, hey, rent's due, rent's due. That might be annoying, but if they're not coming into your home, if they're not, forcing themselves into your home, it might be okay. The issue is when landlords are trying to remove people, which is what I've heard. There are stories of landlords tracking people's stimulus checks. That's not legal. That's not okay. And trying to trade, like barter, unfortunately, in some cases, sexual favors for rent. That's not okay. There are a lot of landlords who don't understand the limit of what they can do to enforce payment. You enforce rent payment through court. You, as a landlord, don't get to, physically impose yourself upon your tenant to get payment. If you feel that you're being harassed, just like if your landlord came into your home without notice, you could call the police. You have a claim for trespassing. Do the same. If your landlord, if you find out that they've been checking your mail, tracking your funds, you should consult with an attorney to see what your remedies are. Those are unacceptable actions, and yes, it can feel like nothing will be done for a little while because of the courts, but you absolutely have a remedy. And if it feels wrong, it probably is wrong. So talk to a lawyer.
Certainly. So we have a lot of questions for counsel and Mr. Sanker. So I'm going to read out some questions from our audience. Of course, any of you can chime in if you have perspective or if you have personal insight. So the first question is, there is a bill being pushed through Congress to waive rent. How would that work?
So on my social media, I will poll different poll questions, just to see people's perspective. And that was actually a question that I posed was, do you think rent should be waived? And I was surprised to learn that most people it was like 50-50. The problem is if you stop rent, then you have to also talk to the mortgagors and say, you can't charge them mortgage. And every company is not on board with not collecting mortgage payments at this time. So I think that the windfall of that would be a little difficult it would be difficult to get at it. If I'm not paying rent, my landlord's not getting their money, they're in trouble. And then I mentioned earlier the issues with maintenance. You still have to pay for maintenance. If it's a large building, they have they have different like pest control services, contractors they have to pay. So I think it's a bigger issue than just not paying rent.
So, Mr. Stanker, what are some of the things that, someone who's, I think the question was, how can we, if we're potentially thinking about moving out, right? Maybe your plan was to always move out of your apartment or your condo. How can you position yourself to have those funds despite of this circumstance? So like counsel said, you and, even Dr. Gaffney said, you already can't pay the bills to manage your business or to manage your residential space. So how can someone position themselves to be able to be financially stable and not kind of put themselves in a hole, but still be able to accomplish that goal to move, despite the circumstances we're kind of going through at this time?
Yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head. I would definitely have a better understanding of everything that's going around. So, practicing hesitancy and building cash. Because when you make a move into whether it's a new apartment or a new home, even me, I moved into DC about 2 months ago. And there's a lot of unexpected expenses that you just do not think about. And given today's environment where income, cash is king, income is king, you don't know if you're going to get paid. Just practicing hesitancy, because do you want to give up something that you've been saving up for the past 2 years, which is the cash in your account? Or do you want to wait it out? Practicing that patience and saying, okay, hey, what is the next 2 months of me just staying put, finding myself, building up my cash a little bit more, and before I take this next leap of faith, as great as it might seem. And then, of course, now there's unexpected expenses with furniture and just things that you may not be thinking about. I mean, I know even myself as a financial advisor, there's expenses that I wasn't thinking about.
Right.
I'm a human being at the end of the day. So there's just natural things or inclinations that you have, such as eating out more, or getting more groceries, that you just don't think about. So I would just be very hesitant before you just take actions based on emotions.
Sure. Does anyone else have any insight as to what they've kind of rearranged personally? Jasmine or Donald or Dr. Gaffney, we haven't heard from you in a little while. I know these questions are kind of the legal and financial questions. People are eager to get their finances in order. Looks like Kendrick and Jessica are about to have some new clients after this.
One of the things that I'm a subscriber. It's like, oh yeah, I'll take that. I'll have that. That's only $10 a month. Throw it in there, and it's like unsubscribe, end that, take off that subscription. Can't go to Massage MB. Get that out of here. And really being cognizant of saving that money, like not looking at it as, oh, I freed up all this money. Now I can, blow it out on Amazon or whatever. And really shifting my thinking. So, I have some things on the horizon that will generate some more income. And what this situation made me do was take a step back and not say, oh, it'll ease up the household finances, or, let me double up on my student loan payments. So I'm like, no, let me invest those earnings, and not send them to my checking account. So just being, more mindful of making investments and getting monies together for the future. I've already found myself in the position where I had to stop working, couldn't generate an income, and that 3 to 6 months of money that you have in the bank, it goes really quickly. And you're not always able to bounce back or return to normal in 3 to 6 months. And so we really have to think about, we have to think in the long term. I think that's something that we just fail to do. We're very short-sighted. We're very, instant gratification nation. And, all of the technology and the social media just kind of fuels that. So just taking a step back and just really eliminating those automatic payments or those payments that come out of things that you don't think of, and don't think of that money as freed up to spend. Yeah, go see Kendrick and invest that money.
I'm trying to tell y'all, Kendrick will check you. He has certainly checked me, and I've accomplished so much. I'm very excited to make more lawyer money. I'm excited for my money clout to go up, because I know when I get a whole bunch of money, it won't go crazy dealing with Kendrick, because he'll check you. So a question for, the question says, what resources and legal protections are available for those who can't afford rent or mortgage payments during this pandemic? And I think you kind of addressed that a little bit, talking to kind of how you can renegotiate those agreements and things of that nature. But I guess what are the resources available immediately that you can kind of seek? Where would you direct somebody? And I guess this question is technically for Miss Hornsby.
So I actually just saw that in Maryland, they have rolled out EARP, a program for Montgomery County residents to assist with their issues financially. Now, if you're not in Maryland, that's not super helpful. It's challenging because from what I'm seeing, it's sort of like jurisdiction by jurisdiction. So Montgomery County has that program, but then Maryland broadly has or is rolling out a renter assistance program. And so I would encourage you to look at the updates for whatever state that you're in, the governor's updates, and see what programs they are considering and which ones have actually been put into place. Because you might be surprised to learn that there are a lot more resources available than you thought. In DC, they have Bread for the City, Catholic Charities. At the beginning of the year, they sort of build up their budget to assist individuals who get judgments entered against them. So no one wants a judgment because it's a judgment. But I have seen some tenants take advantage of that, where they ask the judge for a judgment so that they can then have the balance paid by these organizations, and then they're able to stay in their home. If you're in the district, that might be something that you want to take a look at, but keep in mind that they do run out of funds, and there will be a lot of people who are also seeking assistance. Mm-hmm. So that's sort of the extent of what I know of off the top of my head.
Okay. And thank you for those responses. And just a quick reminder to our viewers, we are tuned into Afrique Today. So make sure that you like, comment, subscribe. If you haven't posted a question or anything of that nature, please like, comment, and subscribe. Afrique Today TV again. And as well, of course, follow the Patcha Foundation. So now our audience is asking a lot of questions. So now we've talked about landlord-tenant issues. We have talked about some financial issues. So turning to, this is actually a real spicy question. So for young people entering adulthood, dating is somewhat challenging. Is it made more complicated by COVID-19? Will it be like HIV, where folks are encouraged to know their status and share it with potential partners? Hello, Jasmine and Dr. Gaffney. What you got for us? Because this sounds like right up your alley.
So one of the things I think about that's great about dating in COVID 2019 is you can't get together. And so having to just talk, having to having the relationship live where it truly lives, which is within your conversation and your engagement with one another, is all that there is to have right now, if you're not violating the social distancing rules. So there's no confusion of, do I like this guy or girl, or do I just like how they're dressed up at the moment? Do I like this guy or girl, or do I just like that they could take me to restaurants I don't have access to? Do I like this person, or I just like that they're adventurous and I get to do all these fun things with them, but I don't actually like them? So it's real. I've been saying all along that this whole COVID 2019 and social distancing and quarantining is going to make or break relationships, because all we got is each other right about now. In terms of what is someone's COVID status, yes, that's something that I have considered with other healthcare professionals. Like, is it going to be something else that we stigmatize and, hold against people? It shouldn't matter, because we shouldn't be together, right? We should be distanced. But it is something to consider and to keep in mind is, do you know your status? How do you know you haven't encountered this virus? How do I know you can't spread it to me? Because remember, people can have the infection and can spread it and not have symptoms at all, or have very mild symptoms where they wouldn't suspect it. So as someone who takes care of people who have HIV, as well as someone who's very active in helping people prevent HIV infection, I take stigma very seriously, and it's something I'm always trying to fight and combat. And the way that we combat stigma is just to educate, inform, and enlighten. So hopefully it doesn't turn into that. But I think, just all of us being here on this platform and our respective platforms, continuing to educate and spread the truth about this situation is what will help prevent that stigma.
Yeah, certainly. Thank you for those points, Dr. Gaffney. And I find that I have done some legal work with the HIV population as well. And stigma is greatly associated, but I find that those individuals are some of the greatest, greatest individuals. They're very bold. They're able to have these basic conversations. And so I guess just making it even more personable. Jasmine, I know that you deal with clients and having these kind of probably helping them navigate through conversations. And, how do you have these conversations if, maybe you're just talking to someone, you're in a situationship, as the millennials call it, whatever you may have going on. And, people are trying to have kickbacks and trying to hang out. But I don't know where you've been. Like, you might be a whole doctor or a first liner. I don't want to hang out with you if you've been, hanging out with different people. So how do you have these conversations? Because I know that some people, they just simply don't get it. And millennials, we're very itchy. We don't know how to sit on our behind, as my mom would say.
Yeah, it's been a conversation I've been having. I work with adolescents, a lot of adolescents and millennials. So I have just been trying to stress and advocate for sitting at home. But for the people that are in situationships or relationships or just trying to date, I have been advocating for it. This is, like Dr. Gaffney said, this is a great time to date. Like, there's no pressure about when we're going to see each other. There's no pressure about being pressured into things that you don't want to do or any of this. Like, it's literally, you can sit on the phone, you can sit on FaceTime or whatever you have and get to know each other and have a real conversation. And also, there's not the pressure of like, maybe I'll give it a second day. Like, if you can't connect over the phone, you probably won't connect in person. So it's like it takes some of that pressure off as well, being honestly speaking. And I think this is a great time for people in relationships to get to know each other, to reconnect. We have nothing but time at home aside from working from home. So this is a good time to better learn your partner, better learn them, hear what's going on in their life, because I think we have been so caught up in day-to-day life and so busy that people change. And it's like you don't quite recognize those changes. So I think this is a great time to reconnect in your relationship or in your situationship or with your new it's a good time to reconnect, and it's a good time to take some of that pressure off, especially if you like have anxiety or social anxiety or different things like that.
Sure. So we heard from the ladies. Thank you, Jasmine, by the way. Um, Thank you, Jasmine. So we've heard from the ladies. Do the males have any perspectives? I know that y'all are very strategic in the dating world. So we'd love to hear what you guys have to say, and maybe how you've been kind of navigating the scene from a personal perspective. Or maybe advising your friends, help a friend, tell a friend, Kendrick or Donald, if you have any insight.
I think a good point was brought up that you just don't know where others have been. And that's something that you always want to be wary of. I mean, a lot of the times we're always thinking about ourselves and not thinking about the impact that we have on others. So that's something that I'm always thinking about. I think one of the funniest things that was brought up to me, of course, with some of these dating apps is I think it's funny that these dating apps are like great things to do, but in today's time, you might like somebody, but you still can't see them because we're night scenes. I think it's just, as you all said before, it's time for you to really get to understand a person, get to know them in a way that you may not have before. But always just understanding the implications of your actions and where that might lead you. So.
Certainly. Thank you, Kendrick. Do you have any insight, Donald?
Yeah, definitely going back with what Jasmine had mentioned and really finding that time to actually reconnect. When I think about my partner lives out of town, and so there's that whole like separation piece, and it really goes into like, all right, really refiguring out, what makes you attracted to this person, what makes you, what do you have in common, what differs, and really being able to understand what are those main things that, that flow really well, or things that you really have to compromise with, and finding other ways to be able to enjoy each other because you're not able to physically be there, and really understanding like, if this were to happen again, like how would you handle that? In different scenarios that could come up, this is trying and it wasn't planned. And so even when things can be rough, like, my partner or my friends, different things come up and it's like, is this like an actual personality thing, or is this like, can we just blame this on COVID and people just being frustrated and anxious? And, being able to actually have an understanding of if you can handle this, then there's a lot of other things you can probably be able to handle together.
Thank you. It was lovely to hear the male perspective. I always like to get that insight because, us women of color, they say we're a little too bold and we're, independent and got our own perspectives and things of that nature. So we are looking at about 7 more minutes. And we have a couple more questions from our viewers. So the last question, of course, anyone, I think, I'm sure everyone wants to hear it from Kendrick, but I think all of you guys as young professionals can certainly offer some insight. So the question is, what do you think this COVID-19 season, has taught you about yourself in general in your financial life? How can people maintain the great things learned during this time, such as spending less and better money management?
Yeah, I think it's allowed people to take a step back. I mean, we're in May, we're 5 months in, so it's allowed you to take a step back and take a look at what have you done within the last 5 months financially. I'm a big proponent of systems. So when you think about systems, habits, what habits have you started since January when you made your New Year's resolution? Given the challenges that you've made, what has that done? For me, I'm a systems guy for savings, automatic savings, automatic IRA contributions, automatic 401k contributions. Whenever we're talking to a lot of clients, the reason why they're as successful and financially successful as they are is because they build good systems. So I think when we take a look at, even myself, grasping what I've done, it's always looking at, okay, how have things changed with COVID-19 and how can I ramp up my systems now that expenses have gone down? So maybe that's a slight tweak in your savings. If you were saving $500 a month, like you shared, and now you have a little bit more discretionary income, might as well bump that automatic 500 a month to 600. Challenge yourself and seeing if you can.
Yeah. Certainly. Jessica, do you have anything that you've learned during this season, or something that I know you said that you have a little one on the way? That's so exciting. Have you learned anything during this time, and coming out into recovery mode? Is there anything that you think you can share from this season that you've learned?
Certainly. So my husband and I we are extroverts. We are 1,000% extroverts. We're always hosting something. There's always somebody at our house. And right before COVID, I habitually go through and categorize all of our spending. Right before COVID, I'm embarrassed to say, we had spent $1,800 on food in addition to groceries, just because we were hosting so many things at our house. And oh my gosh, what are we doing with our lives? We're not rich, but that's what we were doing. And now that we can't have people over, now today's nice. And he said, oh, we should barbecue. Let's go get stuff. No, we have food in the house. We can grill if you want to put something on the grill. So what I have learned is that we need to find a way to be social without being wasteful. Since I am expecting, we've tried to limit even ordering food. And look at how much we're saving with our food budget, and finding other ways to entertain ourselves that's free. We don't have to order the new movie that just came out, on demand for $20. We can find an old one that we know that we like. Something else that I actually discovered this morning when I was sending my financials to my accountants was how much I was saved, areas I could save in my business. Now, I still kept the same budget for my employees, but seeing if there were ways that maybe some of the automatic subscriptions for business services that we weren't really using, I noticed them in the statements today. So we're not even using that. And so doing a self-audit, I think, is also important. Even if you have a Kendrick or you have someone else who's helping you, take a moment to look at your financials yourself and see if there are ways that you can cut back. So I'm hoping that when the world reopens, we won't keep having functions and spending money unnecessarily.
Thank you, Jessica. Do you guys, Jasmine and Donald, do you have any closing remarks? We have one more question, which I really want to get to, because I think that Jasmine will have some great insight to it, and probably the rest of you guys. But Donald and Jasmine, do you have any insight as to kind of what you've learned in this season and going forward? Brief.
Just really quickly, I have just learned to express a lot of gratitude in this season. It's been so uncertain for everyone, but I have been grateful enough to be in a great position. And I think that's the thing that I've learned. And I've also been saving, because I have been sitting my butt in the house. I have not left. So I have really been learning to just be grateful for what I have and the people I have around me that are still supporting me from afar. So just briefly.
Aw, that's awesome. So one last question. A viewer on YouTube says there has been probably potential chance of long-term social distancing and potentially the impact on mental health. What can you do to better handle re-entering outside, as the millennials call it, when outside opens? And so we have 30 seconds. I don't know, Donald, if you have some remarks, and then Jasmine, our mental health person, can kind of wrap us up a little bit.
Being able to get out and figure out how you're going to re-enter, looking at what are the things that you want to do and what kind of protocols are they going to have to allow you to do that. I would advise against going into things that are just outright unsafe that, could cause us to have to re-enter the situation. But being able to find businesses, events, organizations that are really taking precautions to making sure that things were safe and being able to veer yourself that way.
Awesome. Thank you. So just really quickly before Khadijah and I close, um, if you all could kind of share your social media and I'll just drop it real quick and then we got to close. So Jessica, if you want to kind of share your social media and then we can go down the line.
Sure. Instagram, DMV_lawyer. And you can get in contact with me there.
All righty.
I think I follow you.
Oh, good. Hey.
Yes. How about you, Donald? What's your social media handle so we can get Snatched and stuff from outside?
So follow me on Instagram at Coach_Donald. It's also the same on YouTube, Coach Donald on YouTube. Our Facebook page is Global Human Performance, but far more active on Instagram.
Awesome. How about you, Dr. Gaffney? Are you on social media? How can we get our tips?
I am. So you can follow me at Dr. Alexia, so DRALEXEA at Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. And if you are a breast cancer survivor or if you're at risk for breast cancer or ovarian cancer, you can follow me at Breast Cancer Beautiful on Facebook.
All righty. Kendrick, social media?
Yeah, my Instagram is no, not Kendrick Lamar. That's no, not Kendrick Lamar.
Oh, okay. Okay. And Jasmine, she always has a great positivity aspect. What's your social media, beautiful?
I am Miss Belvin, MISSBELVIN_. So be sure to get all of your mental health tips and wellness tips and all the empowerment and things of that nature.
All righty. I hope that you guys have really enjoyed tuning into us. Thank you so much, Afrique Today, for having us on this platform and having the Patcha Foundation and all our panelists. We thank you for all your insight on the finances, the legal tips, the fitness, and our health professionals as well. So once again, subscribe for future. We hope to be able to come on this platform again and do some, just have some discussions and share good information and just keep you guys moving. We are stepping into recovery and it shall be well. Khadijah, do you have any closing words for the people?
Yes, of course. I just, again, want to thank all of our wonderful panelists that joined us today. Please be sure to do yourselves a big favor and head to all of their social media accounts. Okay, you need to emerge from this COVID-19 pandemic a brand new, holistically healed person. Get those finances in check. Get a lawyer in check. Let Donald get that body right. Jasmine got you with the mental health. Come on, y'all. Dr. Alexia is here to provide y'all some services. So please do yourselves a favor and get in contact with all the panelists that we had today. And again, if you're looking to host a TV show, please see Afrique Today TV. Reach out to them. It's been an excellent time here with you all. The Patcha Foundation truly thanks you all for joining us today. Panelists, thank you all so much for sharing your expertise. Everyone, please stay safe. Keep that 6 feet distance. I know it's hard. We're going to be back outside before we know it. Thank you all so much.
Yes, and please let us know, us junior associates, we kind of want, as from the Patcha Foundation, let us know if there's any other topics you'd like to discuss, and we'll give it to y'all. We got a lot to talk about. I am a new young lawyer, so I like to talk. So anyways, thank you all for tuning in. Thank you, Afrique Today. Continue to support Afrique Today. They've been great to work with. Have a blessed day, everyone. And once again, thank you, thank you, thank you.
that Patcha Foundation succeed to recharge my battery. I'm a very, very happy guy. You know, sometimes you are doing things and you don't know, you continue as usual. But when I came with Patcha Foundation, with all the talk, with all the advice, I succeed to recharge my battery and have new objectives. So now I'm going to raise all my actions. I'm going to do more, and I pray God that He helped me to continue to do this amazing work. I think with the help of all those who promise, we are going to do more. Thank you for all. Thank you, Patcha. Thank you, Faboni. Thank you, all the people who did their best to make my stay marvelous. Thank you. Bye-bye.